Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you all to this BovINE webinar jointly organized by the Portuguese and Italian partners of BovINE. And in particular, I would like to welcome our invited speaker, Andrea Bertaglio, a journalist specialized in sustainability, climate change, and environmental issues, who writes for various newspapers, magazines, and websites. Andrea worked in 2007 at the Center on Sustainable Consumption and Production, born from the collaboration between United Nations Environmental Policy and Wuppertal Institute. Andrea has graduated in sociology for years. He has been focusing his work on the impact of food production, starting from those related to animal husbandry and animal production. At the end of 2018, he has published the book In Defensa de la Carne, In Defense of Meat. And before I give him the floor, and once again, thank you for joining us and being available to give this presentation. But before that, I would like to ask just a few minutes of your attention to remember that BovINE is a EU-funded beef innovation network. This network links researchers, advisors, farmers, and other relevant stakeholders across 9 EU member states to stimulate exchange of knowledge and ideas to address solutions to the spectrum of challenges faced by the beef sector. And this project, with around 18 partners, is coordinated by my colleague, Professor Maïf Anchion from TIGAS in Ireland. The project covers 4 thematic areas: socioeconomic resilience, animal health and welfare, production efficiency and meat quality, and environmental sustainability. And the webinar we have today is included in the socioeconomic resilience thematic area, which is coordinated by my colleague Hayes de Roost from the Research Center for Animal Production in Italy, and to whom I will now give the floor just to hear some highlights of this socioeconomic resilience thematic area, and in particular where this presentation is included. And I will give him the floor before we're listening to our invited speaker, Andrea Bertaglio. So, Case, the floor is yours, and thank you all for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Magda, for giving me the floor to illustrate the socioeconomic resilience area and the topic of this afternoon. As you said before, Mimi, perhaps you can have the second slide now. Did you see the second slide?
Yeah.
Well, and that's indicating what already Magda Fontes of the University of Lisbon already illustrated. The BovINE project has 4 thematic areas, and today, in fact, we will talk about the socioeconomic resilience area, where we collect within the BovINE project research innovations and good practices which enhance the sustainability of the beef production in Europe. Next slide, please. The research topic of today has been tackled last year in 2021. It's one of the 8 topics we have tackled last year. And this topic is dealing with the initiatives in Europe to improve the beef image and to break with the current trend of the consumption decline in order to, well, by means of creating more transparency in the chain, to raise awareness, to enhance short chains, so direct sales of farmers to the consumers. And the next slide, please. The topic is dealing then with the downward trend of beef consumptions. As everybody knows, In Europe, the beef consumption is gradually going down because of many reasons. One of the reasons is that some of the beef consumption sometimes is treated badly because of the fact that sanitary issues related to the consumption of red meat are mentioned by the World Health Organization, but in that case only with very high consumption levels, But there is also another problem, which is a shift from high quality cuts to ground beef, to more hamburgers, which is also a problem for the sector. And then the last top problem, which is related to the decline of beef consumption, is somehow that the carbon footprint of beef is worse compared to pork and poultry meat. We have, and then we have the last slide, please, Mimi. In this last slide, I show you that within this, under this topic, we have of creating a better image of beef on the market. We have collected 21 research innovations and good practices. So good practices are those practices which farmers have started in Europe. They have been collected in 9 countries, the 9 countries which are composing the network of BovINE. And the examples which have been collected of these 21 innovative practices are certification schemes, direct sales strategies in certain countries, but also initiatives of producer organizations, etc., etc. And to find these research innovations and good practices, you just have to consult the so-called BovINE Knowledge Hub. And perhaps if you have something to write, please note that the Knowledge Hub you can find at www.bovine.eu.net. And there you can find all the innovations and good practices which have been collected in the first 2 years, and also many of the third of this last year. And so that's a knowledge hub where you can find everything which BovINE has collected in the last years. Also for the other 3 thematic areas related to animal welfare, to production efficiency, and to environmental sustainability. But now today we will stick to the problem of creating a better beef image. And one of these research innovations which have been collected and promoted by BovINE is the Sustainable Meat Project. And that's the subject of today, which will be illustrated by Andrea Bertaglio. And first I will give the word to Magda, perhaps to introduce him, but today he will have the word and he will illustrate this interesting initiative in Italy, which have been started about 10 years ago, in order to promote the image of meat in general, but also of beef. And perhaps he can have the floor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kees. Yes, and I now would like to give the floor to Andrea, who has kindly accepted to come and give us some explanation and understanding of what is the Sustainable Meat Project, which we came across while looking for this research innovation. So thank you very much once again. And now the floor is yours, Andrea. Thank you.
Thank you both. Thank you everybody for having me here today. I was happier if I could meet you in person, possibly in Portugal, but it's fine also via web. And so yes, thanks. I'm, as Magda said, my name is Andrea Bertaglio. I'm a journalist, actually, an environmental journalist who got in touch with this project we are going to talk about today, who is exactly 10 years old. So it's the 10th anniversary this next September. And it's about, I'm going to share properly the presentation, which is more interesting than and seeing myself. Here we are. So we define it as a successful communication experience because it was a need felt by not only the beef sector, but the three main meat sectors in Italy, which are, I hear some rumors, guys. I don't know if can switch off the microphone because I don't hear it. Thanks. So it's a communication project which is trying to balance the disinformation or the misinformation circulating on these topics. We were talking about before sorry, Magda, probably can you switch off your microphone, because
my micro was off.
Okay, sorry, because there is some noise and I don't hear you properly. Sorry about that. So it's a communication project trying to fight against the disinformation that we were speaking about. The World Health Organization, no? Shortly, Keith was saying about that, was talking about that. So the fact that since a few years, people think that if you consume red meat or processed meat, you get cancer and so on and so forth, which is not what the International Agency for the Research of Cancer has said. And this project aims to face all this disinformation, so in a pre-competitive way. So the beef sector, the poultry sector, and so Assocarne is the beef sector, Assica is the swine processed meats producer, and Unitalia is the poultry sector, put themselves together in a pre-competitive way, which is something very unusual in Italy, where there is mostly a big fragmentation also in the livestock field, to speak out what they're doing. So to say, okay, there are some environmental impacts when you produce meat, not only beef, but meat in general. But it's not true that, for instance, red meat causes cancer. It's not true that livestock is the main origin of greenhouse gases emission, like NGOs, green environmentalist NGOs are saying, because the main source of greenhouse gases emissions are transports and the energy sector, industry, surely not livestock. So they put themselves together and they started this communication project to tell the public what's going on. And as I say, they started to get in touch and to start this project in 2012. I was involved a touch later to help them to be more present, particularly on the web, because a lot of this information, as you know, is circulating on the web, on the social media. So made by the three main meat trade associations in Italy, Assica, Assocarne, and Unitalia. As you can see, the logo of the project, Carni Sostenibili, so sustainable meat, is a hourglass. You can see that, and it's basically the base, the basis, and the symbol again of the project. It's a graphic evolution of the pyramid. We all heard about the double pyramid, no? The food and the environment double pyramid, which is saying that you are the food with the highest environmental impact is the one you're supposed to eat the least. We can agree with that, but the environmental impact presented in terms of CO2 equivalent is more or less the same. Why? Because you're supposed to eat much less meat than vegetables. So the Sustainable Meat Project is promoting the Mediterranean diet, which is recognized as one of the best ways to for nutrition, but also is much more than nutrition. It's also about social life, culture, traditions. So we're not here to say you have to eat meat every day. We're not here to say meat doesn't have an impact. We are here to say if you follow a proper diet like the Mediterranean one, the environmental impact in terms of CO2 equivalent of meat and of vegetables is more or less the same. But I let you explain this thing better than how I can do by a short video couple of minutes, which is explaining what is all about. So this is basically how the Sustainable Meat project started. So the point is, as I was saying, the need to communicate properly what meat production and meat consumption are about. And to do that, we are trying to find an appealing way, let's say, because the problem is that often these are very technical or complex subjects, so it's pretty difficult to reach people's attention nowadays, particularly on the social media. So we need to find a way through videos, through short articles, through infographics to speak out, to give a correct message in a very easy, short, effective way. So this is one of the examples I want to show you, because it's not the best thing graphically, as you can see, but it was one of the first try to do what I'm talking about. So an infographic showing that we are all speaking about the emissions of meat consumption and production, but we don't know. I mean, it's a message to people turning, for instance, vegan, and because they want to save the climate and blah, 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 and then they don't take in consideration the fact that if they go to spend a weekend in a European capital, they create much more CO2 emissions with a single flight than consuming meat for 1 year. So this was a very effective infographic showing, as I say, that a return flight Rome to Brussels is creating per passenger more CO2 equivalent than 1 year of meat consumption on average of an Italian citizen. So it's something major. And when people know this thing, because the fact is that they don't know, they constantly hear, the public is constantly hearing that meat is impacting on climate, meat is negative for this, for health, for the climate, and so on and so forth. But when they know these things, something changes in their mindset, because when you give up meat and then with a single flight you create more emissions, I mean, surely people not ideologically compromised, let's say, are listening to the message, and it's very useful. Then, of course, there is not only the online communication. We, as an association, because Carni Sostenibili is an association itself since some years, organized also, before the COVID, of course, some real life event, and for every event, as you can see, dedicated to children, to pregnant women, to people making sport, to elderly people, and so on and so forth. Every time we have produced some informative material, like these are some flyers taken as example. The events organized through the years were many, as I said, until a couple of years ago. Now we are restarting slowly because the COVID and the lockdown affected a lot our activities, so the not online activities, and we are starting again this year. But from October 2014, when we have officially presented the project, many things have been done, and very different from them, as you can see. So institutional initiatives like the Senate in Rome in Italy, the European Parliament, and so on, and events with the chef Massimo Bottura, who's a star Michelin chef. The children in the picture was a scientific conference for pediatricians, and again, books, presentations. Longevity Run is an event dedicated to elderly people, but open to everybody. Again, showing not only that your nutrition is important, but also your lifestyle in general. So the Longevity Run was a kind of sportive event to promote the combination between good nutrition and a good lifestyle in general. Because if you think that you get healthy giving up meat, but then you don't move from your couch, something is wrong. You don't get really healthy, or you can get pretty much overweight even if you eat only salad. One step back, the presentation of the book of Professor Russo, if you see October 2017, that was another very important thing. It's a study made by the University of Bologna in which the equipe of Professor Russo has shown that the real consumption of meat is very different from the apparent one, because we are constantly hearing in Italy, for instance, that we consume 76 kilos per meat per capita per year, but these guys have calculated that and showed that the real consumption is more or less 38 kilos, because it's the meat we are really eating. So it's not because when you have the animal, the carcass, we don't eat all the animals. And they have made this calculation, and it's very important, not only about meat, about food in general, because the nutritional guidelines are based on estimations which are wrong, basically. And it's that was something major from my point of view. Then, of course, the book the presentation of our report, I will tell you about in a couple of minutes. My book, I will tell you two things about that as well. Magda has mentioned it already, introducing me. And then another book, the Temple of the Mediterranean Diet, is an idea of Professor Pulina, particularly. Giuseppe Pulina is the president of Carni Sostenibili, and he has developed another evolution, let's say, of the pyramid, which is showing, as I say, that the Mediterranean diet is much more than only food. It's culture, it's lifestyles, it's social life, and so on. Now, I was telling you about the report. That's how I got in touch personally with this project the first time, to make to support the team in making a review of the first edition of this study, which is the sustainability of meat and cured meats in Italy. You can find it for free. You can download it for free on the English section of the website, which I will show you at the end of this presentation. As you can see, the first edition was in 2014. So again, it's the scientific base of this project. It's showing why meat production, meat and cured meat production and consumption in Italy is sustainable, both for the environment and for health. It's been made an update of this study every second year. As you can see, the COVID in 2020 blocked us with that as well, but finally later on this year, I think in October 2022, will be presented the update of this study, which is showing new data about nutrition, about environment, and as far as I understood, there will be a new part also on lab-grown meat. So these meat substitutes, so vegetable fake meat and lab-grown meat, which is hiding many controversies in terms of health, environmental impact, because these products are made in bioreactors, very taking a lot of energy to work, intellectual property. So there are many things to talk about, because as you probably know, in Brussels, where I am right now, by the way, there is a lobby, an active lobby since December 2021, as far as I know, of made by 13 lab-grown meat producers, which are actively lobbying on the European institutions in Brussels. So there's a lot to talk about, because they're presenting these products as a sustainable, healthy alternative to meat. And well, let's talk about that. And as I was saying, as a journalist, I'm still a journalist, because I still write for some, as Magda said, some newspapers, some magazines. I'm still collaborating with the Huffington Post in Italy, for instance, and I still write about environment. But environment is a lot of is many things. So from renewable energies to e-mobility, many things. But when it's about meat, I have to say, after this experience, with this project, I'm really not able anymore to be neutral as a journalist should be. And I took the opportunity now already 4 years ago to collect all the informations, important informations, interesting informations that I had the chance to collect through this working experience. And I wrote a small book which was now translated in English, and it will be published in English, I think, at the end of this summer. So I collected information about the impacts of meat, and I'm speaking of emissions, but also the water consumptions. And I took the opportunity to debunk all these myths about, for instance, about antibiotics, about hormones, growth hormones. I mean, we hear people saying still that meat is full of hormones, and they don't know that hormones are forbidden in Europe since 1981, I think. So it's I'm saying all these things. I'm giving all these informations in a very easy way. Again, mixing it up with my personal experience, what took me here, why I took a stand for meat, which is something which has made curious many people in Italy. This book took me to the major TV and radio programs because somebody dealing with the environment but defending meat it's something that nobody has seen before, and I'm explaining why I took this position, my relationship with the Sustainable Meat Project in a transparent way, and giving again these informations about the real impacts of meat. So now I'm compromised, and I have a huge part of the environmental world in Italy hating me, but that's fine. So these are the websites I ask you to take a note of if you want to, because let me open a bracket. There is a huge need now coming from outside and working as a communicator. I see that there is a huge need for this sector to communicate, and that's why I'm glad to see and to participate today in initiatives like the BovINE project, because there is a huge need to spread a proper communication about this sector and about beef in particular, I would say. And I understand that it's not the job of a farmer, it's not the job of a scientist as well, but there is someone who has started to do that also for you, let's say, for besides the BovINE initiative. So Carni Sostenibili in Italy, and that's the link in red, which you can find everything in English. And the European List of Voice. European List of Voice, it's something I want to mention because it's a European project. It's even bigger than Carni Sostenibili because it's involving many different supply chains. It's involving poultry, beef, swine sector, but it's involving also aquaculture, leather, fur, foie gras. It's a very huge thing, which I have to say with a touch of pride was inspired by the Carni Sostenibili project in Italy, and we got, of course, in touch, and now I'm also collaborating with them, and it's something which has Carni Sostenibili speaking to the general public mostly. The European List of Voice is doing that too on a European level, so in all the member states of the European Union, and it's also trying to reach the legislators, the decision makers, the members of the parliament in Brussels, in the so-called Brussels bubble. That's why I'm here these days, because it's very important to reach these people too, because the NGOs like Greenpeace and so on have invested loads of money, and speaking of million euros in communication, in lobbying, let's say, And this sector, so the livestock sector, got it a bit in late and is trying to, it started trying to react, let's say, to give, to spread the proper information. No greenwashing, nothing like that. And I'm happy to say that European Livestock Voice was inspired by the Sustainable Meat Project, by Carni Sostenibili, and is trying, as I say, to communicate, to be a common voice for the livestock sector. So besides Carni Sostenibili, besides BovINE and similar projects, I highly recommend you to follow this project and these two websites, which are continuously updated, because another important thing is to be constantly present. You don't need million euros budgets like the NGOs. It's enough, much less, but the important thing is to be consequent, to be constantly present with our information, with our message. And it's the beginning, even if Carni Sostenibili, as I said, is turning 10, it's the very beginning of everything, because the counterpart started much earlier with this communication, as you know, already probably in the 70s, 80s. So I'm glad to add I was glad to have this opportunity to share with you these activities, and if you have any questions, I'm here now. If you are curious or you are having any doubts or critiques or anything, I'm here for you. So just let me know. So thank you for your attention.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
So this question says, you make no mention of biodiversity and the contribution that extensive cattle grazing delivers for nature. Is this something that your project would benefit from, including in your assessment?
Yes, of course. It's one of the most important things to say, particularly when you speak about bovine and about beef production. We do that. We have already spoken about the importance of cattle and grazing animals for biodiversity. We have also made some interviews with experts and with farmers in Sardinia. I've done it myself. It was also a pleasure to see these places and these people, to show how cattle is not only supporting and spreading biodiversity, but is also preventing soil erosion and fires. You know, because it's another thing. I see many environmentalists are happy because in Europe there are more forests now, but they don't consider the fact that it's not really forest. It's bushes getting fire very easily, and that's prevented particularly by the presence of cattle. And when cattle is not there anymore, you have these problems. Speaking of biodiversity and about nature, but it's also a problem socially, because without farmers, without these people living in Italy, particularly on the mountains or in the internal areas of the major islands, Sardinia, Sicily, you have really desert. Really, you have major environmental and social problems. So these rural areas, the abandonment of rural areas is connected to the biodiversity problem. At the same time, I have to say that yes, we have spread already this kind of information, and we will still do that. But we don't agree with this as a Carni Sostenibili with the message that I see sometimes, that only the regenerative agriculture is good for the environment or for the animals. So we are trying to keep to give a balanced message between this grazing cattle, which is great, but also reminding the public that speaking of intensive farming in Italy and in Europe doesn't make sense, because the numbers are much lower than America or Asia, and that also the animals in a stable have advantages, you know, against, for instance, diseases like the swine fever, like the avian flu, and so on and so forth, or predators. So it's what we're trying to say is that cattle is great for biodiversity and what we have said, but also animals in stable, particularly for a question of animal welfare and food safety, are not that bad. That's important to be reminded from our point of view.
I think Magda has a question for you as well.
Yes. I was wondering, first of all, thank you so very much, Andrea. It was really, really interesting. And it seems, at least for me, that for the first time we are listening to someone that confirms that livestock production can be considered as an integral part for achieving a sustainable food system. And you have given the example of the Mediterranean diet, so with something tangible and well understood by the majority of the consumers, not only for these ones that are here and listening to you, but I think it's something that is easily understandable by the general public. But again, I'm really very glad that you mentioned it. Can you give us some advice on the arguments to use when discussing these matters? You have mentioned some, you have mentioned the Mediterranean diet, you have compared even with 1 year consumption of average consumer with the CO2 equivalent from a return flight. So, but apart from those, in your opinion, which can be considered the top 3 or top 5 arguments to defend that livestock production is in fact an integral part of a sustainable food system at present?
5.
Stop, please.
Well, I think so. The first point is surely the health. We speak a lot about environment, emissions, water. Now there is a big drought in Italy, northern Italy, so it's something major at the moment, or the fires in Portugal as well. So, but people are really touched when you tell them what's good for their health or their children's health. So first of all, it's important to tell them that meat is part of a correct diet. And again, it doesn't mean it doesn't mean that you need to eat meat every day, but the message is pay attention to cut out meat from your diet for ideological reasons or because you have seen a video on YouTube and so on. That's the first thing. Another point is, of course, environment. Many people are turning vegan and so on, or reducing dramatically meat because of the environment. So, as I was saying before, yes, there is an impact, but try to consider, as also the video was saying, your lifestyle on the whole. So it's not only about food; it's much more. It's about your clothes, your free time, your anything. So don't think that you are better than the others or more ethic because you don't eat meat, because there are many reasons to question that, and it's a tricky way to let people be aware of that without letting them feel stupid. I mean, we're not judging anybody, just sharing this thought. So let's think about that for the sake of our health, for the sake of the environment. Another thing is another hot topic is surely animal welfare. So many people are convinced that particularly the so-called intensive farming is torture. We need to tell them why. First, is not true, because in Europe there is a very strong legislation to allow the respect of animal welfare, and on top in Italy is also you go to jail. It's not only a question of fines of some thousand euros. Sometimes in Italy you can even go to jail if you mistreat an animal. So we need to let the public know these things, and explaining that a mentally sane farmer is not treating bad his or her animals, because when you treat bad an animal, you get wrong products. So it's senseless, and that's another message that the people tend to reach pretty well, or at least the people, again, not ideologically oriented. And then I see another point. I don't know how many I said, is the economical part, which is another important topic for everybody, and to show that there are tens of thousands of people. I don't know. I think nearly 200,000 only in Italy, but there are millions of families that are living thanks to livestock or meat production. It's making people think before spreading some message. But that's what I hope. Showing also that it's not only about meat. Let's speak of the bovine sector. I mean, as you know better than myself, a cow is not only meat. There are hundreds of products. So it means that a world without cows, in this case, it's a world without many products that we use daily. Products that somebody is producing, maybe since centuries. So it's also again about know-how, about traditions, about many other things. It's entire supply chains, and it's also about, again, about environment. This is a sector virtually with no waste. If from a cow you get meat and hundreds of other products, from cosmetics to medical devices and so on and so forth, it means that you are not creating waste, so circular economy, and you are using natural products like leather, for instance, instead of fossil oil origin products. One of the very first discussions I had publicly with a animal rights / vegan person before getting in touch with this project, I'm speaking of 15 years ago probably, was about this. Me, as somebody dealing and caring of the environment, I was strongly against this opinion of this guy, saying that synthetic materials, so again originated from plastics or from oil, were better than wool or leather because of ethical reasons. No, there is nothing ethical. If you choose, I was saying, a synthetic material against instead of leather produced maybe in your region, there is something wrong from my point of view. So again, and all these things are making people think. But again, we need to do that, because if the public, as it was these last probably 30 years, are constantly hearing the same message, at the end of the day, they take it as a truth. No, there was somebody saying that a lie repeated 1,000 times is becoming a truth. So we need now to work to communicate the real truth, which again doesn't mean greenwashing. It means to say the things how they are.
You're right.
Can I pose a question, Andrea? It's Kay speaking.
Sure.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. No, I would like to ask you about the critics towards beef, which is the water consumption to produce a kilo of beef, for example. Do you, in the communication, also emphasize that this maybe is a wrong message because of the fact that lot of the water which is used to produce beef is also again reused again in the circuit of the production, so that it's not the gross consumption of water what matters, but what is the net consumption. Is there information on kind of sustainability which is emphasizing this point?
Yeah, no, sure. Thank you for this question, because on top, as I said, in this moment, as you know, I think you're in Italy, it's a very hot topic. And it's funny because usually today in this presentation, I used the infographic of the emissions. Often I use the one of the water. So yes, the message that the famous 15,000 liters to produce 1 kilo of beef is a big fake is one of the one of our main messages. So thank you for this question. Absolutely, we do that, and we have done that very often as Carni Sostenibili. It's one of the things I am talking about myself in the book. So explaining that it's not true, because this amount of this 15,000 liters per 1 kilo of meat, which is, as you can see, a perfect example of misinformation, which is very effective, because these are very shocking numbers that you can remember very easily, and we are constantly seeing that copied and pasted. And we explained that, as you have said, it's not true. So the majority, 90% of this water is the so-called green water. So it's the rainwater, which is used to grow animal feed, basically, which is coming back in the water circle, the water cycle. So we explained that many times. So the difference between green water, blue water, and gray water. Now, without deep, and I guess you know better than myself these things. So we explained that very much, very often, and it was one of the major satisfaction from my point of view, particularly in this period of major drought in Italy, as we were saying, because many websites, magazines, and also the Butak is one of the most famous debunking websites in Italy, has taken these informations as a source to debunk this myth about the 15,000 liters per 1 kilo of meat. So yes, it's absolutely one of the most important messages we are spreading.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have another question that's come in that says, how did the retail companies, or did the retail companies in Italy help with your project?
Interesting question, because at the moment, so I've been put in touch with this project by one of the most important person in Italy in the retail world. So it was present at the beginning. It was interested in at the beginning. Now, we are not that much in touch, honestly, and I think we should, because the retailers have a big power in terms of communication and information, and not only about that. And I don't know. It's a tricky question, because I personally didn't see a very huge involvement from their side with this project yet. There was a big interest from some individuals working for the retailing world. People who, as I said at the beginning, put me in touch with this group, or that invited me or somebody else to speak about these things. So some individuals, which is also good, from the retailing world has shown interest, but the sector itself, not really, or not as it should. Actually, they also started some campaigns, from my point of view, spreading not a very good information about antibiotics, about other things. But I can understand from outside is a complex subject, because a retailer has to sell products. So if he is going to make more money selling a veg burger, which is for a producer costing less, and you sell it 3 times the price of meat, I can understand that they're absolutely fine with promoting that and selling that. I would like to see using their power in terms of communication for a proper information, and not only to sell hyper-processed stuff. But it's a complex thing. But for the time being, no, we're not really in touch. But it's a question giving me also the inspiration to try to get in touch a bit more with them. So thanks.
Yes, indeed, take it as a step forward to be able to get in touch with them and make more progress. We've got one more question here, which says, why do you think it is proving so hard to get environmental NGOs to support sustainable grazing when it should be clear that it delivers so many important environmental benefits?
Brutally, because they understood that it's much more effective in terms of likes or donations to give an anti-livestock message. They found a way to connect what is more trendy at the moment, so nutrition, ethics, environment, climate, in a very effective way, because they're very able to communicate, not only because they invested a lot. And they understood, evidently, from my point of view, that it's working, so that they get consensus and they get donations and they get a lot of success easily in spreading a message against livestock, against meat, red meat, first of all. They can connect it with water, they can connect it with climate, they can connect it with deforestation, fires, anything. Greenpeace in Italy was even saying that, as I say, that the emissions from livestock in Europe are higher than the means of transportation. They were blaming livestock farms for the spread of COVID in northern Italy at the very beginning. Amazing. So, and why? Because it's working very well, very easily. To give a message of sustainability, to say to the public, as we are trying to do, that meat production and consumption is sustainable, is much more difficult, of course. No? So they understood that. And there is another problem, because I tried to involve some major NGOs in Italy in giving a proper message, thanks to Carne Sostenibili, but I tried to tell them, okay, let's try to give together proper information about deforestation and so on. The people with whom I've spoken were absolutely fine with that. After a couple of weeks after we met, they told me, they called me, they told me, we don't do that, sorry, because the base of our associates don't want to hear these things. So it was for them not productive in terms of new people joining the organization and making donations. So they were agreeing with our message, because they've seen it was nothing fake or no greenwashing. They didn't collaborate with us because the people following them didn't want to hear that. So it's it's something scary from my point of view, because there are these bubbles, these confirmation bias bubbles, in which people tend to hear only what they want, plus the algorithm of the web and of the social media, and they're in their bubble of disinformation, which is creating problems that we didn't calculate yet, and it's going beyond this topic. It's also the media themselves. They show what makes audience. To publish the book I was showing you before, In Defense of Meat, it took me 2 years, because when I've done it, the titles very successful at the time were only the veg-friendly ones, let's say, and I've been told explicitly, sorry, it's interesting, but at the moment we don't publish it, because the vegan things, the animal rights things are the successful one, so we don't care of this book. And that's also what NGOs are doing. And it's pretty brave as a thing, but it's the reality. So they don't want to hear about it. It's amazing. But it's like that.
Yeah, it's as you say, there's certainly been a lot of information coming out from the other side of things, the veganism side of things. So as you say, getting a voice forward, promoting actually the benefits of livestock farming. Yeah, it's definitely a difficult market there. We have no more questions that have come in at the moment. So are there any Any from you, Magda?
No, I think we can sum up, and thank you so very much, Andrea.
Thank you, really.
I think we need to have this type of webinars and discussions on how to communicate properly and better and scientifically based these arguments, which are
scientific base. Thank you for mentioning that. The message also with Carnegie Sustainability must be always with a scientific base. I'm the first one recommending to communicate easily, even emotionally, as the NGOs are doing, but with a scientific base. And thanks to you, Magda, Keith, and all the people, the real experts working to provide people like myself proper information to spread. So thank you again for having me. Congratulations for your project. And then if you have any further questions or you want, we can keep in touch through the websites. I was showing you the social. You find me anywhere. So
can you tell us or send us, and probably I can share with BovINE partners when your English version of the book is about to be published, because you said it should be by the end of the summer.
Yeah, sure. I'll let you know. Absolutely. I'd be glad to share this info with you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, and thank you to all the attendees. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.